Welcome, I'm Ekua, and you're listening to the Dear Diaspora podcast. Dear Diaspora exists to host meaningful Africa-centered conversations about all things culture, business, mental health, politics, and more. Join me and guests as we ask the big questions, challenge narratives surrounding Africa, learn and unlearn, and explore what a more connected, collaborative, and engaged African diaspora can look like. Thanks for tuning in to episode 3 of Dear Diaspora's 4th season. Today's episode is all about African music, its global reach, and how genres like Afrobeats have officially gone mainstream. Ekua Musumba, host of the Afrolit Podcast and all-around creative, join me for this conversation. Before we get into the episode, don't forget you can now support the show by buying us a coffee. Be as generous as you'd like. All of your support goes right back into growing the podcast and supporting the creatives behind the show. We're also accepting questions for an upcoming episode focused on destigmatizing mental health. Submit your questions anonymously via the link in the episode description. Without further ado, here is my conversation with Ekua. Welcome, Ekua. I'm so excited to finally be recording this episode and to have you as a guest on Dear Diaspora.
I am so grateful for the invitation. Thank you. It has been a long time coming. Yes. When did we start our conversation? Was it in 2018?
It was 2019.
Oh, it was 2019?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 2019.
Wow, what a time.
Like October, November 2019. And
wow.
Yeah, I know. It's been a minute, but it's finally happening and I'm so excited.
Me too. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you for being on the show. Let's get started by getting to know you just a bit better. Like, where are you from and where did you grow up?
So that question is always so nuanced for me. So I like to say that I am a Kenyan New Yorker, but really and truly my family is half Ghanaian, half Kenyan. But I grew up with my Kenyan mom. So it's a story. Yeah, that's a story probably for another day. But I was actually born in England. And then we came here when I was a baby. So there's a lot of cultures, a lot of touch tones, and I feel like that translates into the woman that I'm becoming. But yeah, I spent my formative years in New York City. And so, yeah, definitely 100% a New Yorker.
Love it. And you also have some sort of tie to Zambia, right? Or like a connection to Zambia in some way from like your Instagram bio.
I know, right? Shout out to, if you follow me, you'll see sometimes the flags switch up. I just put the flag because my best friend, shout out to Lantia, my co-host, she is from Zambia. And yeah, we've just noticed so many cultural similarities between Kenya and Zambia. And so, yeah, I was like, so she gave me Chanda. Chanda's my Zambian name.
Oh my God. Love it.
I'm definitely, Chanda, Kangwa. That's really, that's just the other side. It's so funny you say that because like 3 people have DM'd me just like, are you Zambian? And I'm just like, yes.
Love it. Chanda. Yes, that is a very Zambian name. And I love the appreciation of the culture.
I'm a child of Africa, like I got my Bazizi jersey on, shout out, like it's on this heart. You see, he put on the left side because it's like where our heart's supposed to be. So yeah.
So you're also like the host of this amazing podcast. Like when I first got into like podcasts and stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, I was just in search of like African content and came across yours and it is excellent. Like I love your style, just the way you interview people and your personality is awesome. So tell us a little bit about like how Afrolit like got started and just came about.
That I appreciate those words because this podcasting journey is never linear. It is it is not for the faint of heart, as they say. But yeah, no, so it's interesting because I think I never would have predicted that podcasting would take the realm that it has today, but B, just the fact how an idea that I conceptualized with a friend could like turn into its own sort of platform, and people engaging with it in so many different ways. And so in 2016, early 2016, I mean, I had always listened to, because I was a fan and my family has worked in communications and in radio specifically, and so I've always been a fan of the radio, but I actually loved like the conversations that hosts would have. And so I remember, and I forget how I was introduced to Jesus and Mero, the show, but I was introduced to them and I absolutely fell in love. And then I started looking for like more like trivial podcasts, and I came across, the Receipts podcast and 3 Shots of Tequila based out of the UK. And, just hearing like, it was nice to hear, more young voices that I could relate to, because I was at a time, I was still in college, and like, I think you're learning so much about yourself, your life is changing, different relationships, different music, different things that you're like, that are intriguing you, that you want to know more about, or have like, or hear different perspectives on certain things that are going on in like, pop or like Black culture. And so, but I really didn't, and even the Read based here in the US,
Yes.
but I didn't really feel represented in all of them, because of my African heritage. Like I felt like there were pieces of me. So like being a New Yorker, being international, being like all these different things, I could resonate with like bits and pieces of every show, but I never felt like a true like holistic connection. And so I remember telling, my friend at the time, I was like, you know what, let's just record our conversations, because we always have like funny conversations. And like, we've even had like, there'd be times where we'd be having conversations in public and people would tell us like, you guys are so funny. You know what I mean? Like, you guys are like, I don't know what you guys like, I just came in the middle of this, but I want to like, I would listen to you, And so I was just like, okay, this is confirmation, we have to do this. And so we just recorded it at my school in November. This was in 2016. And it really blew up. Like, it got over, like, now I don't know how many listens it has on SoundCloud. But yeah, we just, and we were talking about, at the time, we were talking about Little Kim, we were talking about music, we were talking about just our lives. And so we kept going. We kept going. We would release an episode at that time, like every week. And it was amazing. We got to speak to Ravina, who's now a major recording artist. Just different all types of people from New York. But in 2019, or end of 2018, early 2019, my friend and I decided to part ways, and I took on the show as a solo host. And so, yeah. And, that was an interesting time for me, because we had just partnered with Global Citizen and we were able to do an event. Yeah. So with Afrolit, and just from the community that we built, we were able to do an event with Global Citizen, and have Coldplay involved, Chris Martin, and then we also had Yvette Nosher come and speak, and we had like a panel, a fireside chat. And so it just opened my eyes to, okay, there's something that's brewing here for young millennial Africans who are nuanced, who, yes, they may live in New York, but like resonate with like shows and people that live in London, and then also spend time in Nairobi, or like they'll go back home and like see their aunties in Ivory Coast and Dakar. And like, that is a culture that's becoming more and more normal amongst our peers. And it needs to be talked about. You know what I mean? It needs that nuance of what it means to be an African or an Afropolitan is important, because it's also just showcasing that our Blackness and our Africanness is not a monolith, because there I feel like there is sometimes a singular story in the media. So like Afrolit is really deconstructing all of that. And so, yeah,
Absolutely.
in 2019, the mission sort of changed where I realized like, okay, like I've been able to, I was honing it in for myself and just like having these discussions, but now it's about pouring out and like seeking and bringing in more of the community. And so now it's about having conversations with creatives who are based in Africa or in the diaspora and like finding out their behind the scenes story, like where their, links are, where their inspiration comes from and like why they do what they do. And yeah, it's been amazing. I just got to speak to Shirazi, who's also a recording artist who's done stuff. Yeah, who's toured all across Europe. Like his story is so inspiring. But like you know what I mean? Like you would never, and he just collaborated with Sting. Like, and these are
Okay.
people that like, you know what I mean? Like BT is not talking about them, but it's important for us to know about that because he's one of us. So that's really the premise of Afrolit. We're Africans and we're lit. And so I just, and not lit like literary, because some people DM me like, wait, so you talk about African books? And it's like, I could, because creatives, but no.
Interesting.
Yeah. You'd be surprised how often that comes up. But yeah, no, it's been a blessing. It's truly been a blessing. And I'm just so grateful to finish this year out and start a new season. But yeah, it's been truly something that it's my pride and joy.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much for that background. And it's just been so awesome. I didn't even realize that you had started that far back, like 2016. And I love that you were in this kind of early, because that was, I think, when, I mean, podcasts have always been like around, but, years ago is when people were really establishing themselves as like, podcasters and stuff. And it's just so awesome that, you were in that space and you grew it, and undoubtedly have been a part of like the ecosystem that's helped other podcasts or Africa focused podcasts like become a thing. So it's so awesome to just know that,
Yeah. I mean, even seeing something like Jesus and Jollof, like it's beautiful, that Apple, recognized them as well as Afrolit, like in their top Black voices of 2020. Yeah. And like, I mean, of course, like, do I feel qualified for that? No, but I'm just so grateful that people see that. And like, one thing I always like to say is that as much as it is like about me, it's really, I want it to be about the community. I want it to be about the people that engage with the show, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube or just listen in when they're doing their house chores, like however anyone engages with it. It's like, you can respond back. Like you can be a part of any of the conversations that I've had and like make a comment and say something or contribute and like feel that you're a part of this, So I never want to lose touch of that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I totally understand the desire to, just kind of build community, like be in community, because it feels so awesome because you feel like seen, like you feel like, oh my gosh, like there are other people out there who are like me, who experience the same things or at least the same challenges, and are like trying to navigate like living, in the diaspora, but they have these ties back home. Like it's so just validating, and like you just feel so seen when you hear stories like that. So
completely
yes.
Like every time, like even I saw that you were able to speak with Paco, like shout out again to Mazizi, but like just hearing his story, and even some of like there's a photographer like Naume who was absolutely like she's from Congo, and just like learning about her, like I feel like as I do research and as I meet people and seeing like, oh yeah, they're originally from like they grew up here but they're originally from Nigeria or they're originally from South Africa, like all of that like plays in a piece to how they've now been able to get to where they are now. So it's like no longer, because I think so for so long, Black people, Africans, we had to shrink ourselves to like fit into specific titles, roles, or we felt like we had to. But now it's like, no, like once you start bringing that forward, that's when all these opportunities align. So Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, it's a beautiful thing. And I just love all the content that I'm seeing, whether it's like Africa focused or diaspora focused. It's so awesome that it exists. Cause like growing up, you really didn't see it as much, and you didn't like really see like yourself represented in like media and
At
things like that. So
all.
it's
Oh my
just,
gosh. Yeah.
it's such a breath of fresh air. And I always like think to myself, I'm like, are young people like, middle schoolers, high schoolers, are they like in the space too? Like, are they seeing all of this out there and feeling like just more like confident about like who they are? Like, I hope that's the case, because that was definitely not the case when I was like, kind of coming up. Yes. And so let's like talk a bit more about like, you're also a DJ, right? So like you're very into music.
I've been low key about it though. I've been really low key about it, but I'm popping back out because life is short and you have to do everything that you want to do.
Absolutely. Like, how did you even get into like the more DJing music aspect of things?
It's so funny because it's something that I actually wanted to do since high school, but I I felt like I couldn't because I was a girl, which is like crazy, but yeah. Number two, I didn't like, it wasn't because of like the gender-based thing. It wasn't so easily accessible to me. It's not like I had like a brother or like a really close friend who was a DJ. Like, it was something that I just admired, like some of my guy friends do, but it was very much so like that's what they do together type of thing. So fast forward now to, college, like being out of college or coming back to New York. And one of my friends had started a brunch series, and he started DJing, and like I was helping them promote this brunch party series because I was working in, or still am working in, PR. And so I told him, I was like, because he was getting fed up with the scene. Like, New York now I feel like has really started to embrace a lot of different like African sounds. Like, it was very much so like even within West Africa, it was more so like Ghana and Nigeria. And so, and he's from Gabon. Shout out to DJ Tedma.
Awesome.
And so, yeah, I told him, I was like, hey, like I really wanted to learn how to DJ. He was like, what? Like, why did you say that sooner? Like, you could have been spinning right now. So he just, he took me under his wing, and like, I felt like him, except for East African music and East African sounds. I felt like there was a lot of music that's coming out of that region. And even just like other, like I think back to Congo and Soukous and like all the things that I grew up listening to at like our parents' parties. And I just felt like I never hear some of these songs outside, and there's such a vibe where they just, spring up so much memory. And so, yeah, I wanted to like incorporate that even with like things that are popping right now, you know what I mean? So if it's like mixing in some, Aluna George and some electronic music, and like, with like some of these African sounds and tunes that I grew up on. And so just like having that like blend of like old and new really inspired me, so yeah, that's how the journey started. And I was blessed to spin at like birthday parties and friends like potlucks and dinner parties. And then in 2019, like OK Africa was putting together some parties, and so I like opened for some amazing DJs in New York. This was back in 2019. But the pandemic was hard for all of that, because it's a skill set I feel like you're always improving and learning on. Like, it's like, I guess it's like tennis, or I don't know, what's a sport that, I guess it's every sport. Like, you just, even when you think you got it, a new song comes out. So you have to learn, you know what I mean? You have to learn when to like drop it in, drop it out. Like, it's quite technical. But it really, to answer your question, it started from my love for other African sounds, and wanting to infuse that in the parties that I go to, or hear that at the parties that I go to.
Love it. Love it. And before you got into DJing, what sort of sounds were you hearing the most often when you like would go out?
I mean, definitely, shout out to P Square. I feel like the hold of P Square and Debange and what's his name? Jay
Yes.
Martins. You know what I mean?
That
and
era.
DJ Arafat. Yeah, like I loved that. I loved that. I felt, at home. I felt at peace. Like I loved all of that stuff, but I always knew that there was more. And there were some DJs who did more. But it was something that I also knew that there wasn't any representation. Like rarely did I see an African woman DJing, when I started going out. It's only very recently, that I'm seeing more and more African women killing it actually in this space. And so yeah, for me, I was just like, oh, I want to do this. You know what I mean? Even if it's just for myself to say, you know what, like it's a skill set that I'm learning and I love and it's fun. And but yeah, to answer the question, it was the old school, well, not really the old school stuff, but more so Debange, P Square, a lot of like the early Afrobeats sound.
I'd be interested to know, because you were like in that work, like DJing, what's the difference between like that era of Afrobeats and like, or African music, and like today's era of music? Because I feel like back then, yes, maybe if you go to like an African party, you'll hear
Right.
P Square and those types of things. But if I was just out and about, I wouldn't hear any of that.
Yeah.
But that's like changing, or that's changed like significantly.
Yeah.
So what would you say is like the difference? Like what's changed? What influenced
more
that?
So I'll definitely say the internet. Like YouTube helped tremendously. And I mean, I will say too that, and shout out to my Nigerian brothers and sisters, because of the population and their widespread diaspora, especially in, a city like London, and like they have like an Afrobeats radio station, that can play these tunes, and like majority of the artists would go and like perform there. So I think just seeing those videos pop up and like the world becoming smaller and smaller and smaller because of the internet, now I'm able to tap in with what's happening like directly from, even if it's in London, like I could see a Mr. Easy show because some of my friends who live out there recorded it and now it's on their Instagram stories, or I could see they do a recap on YouTube. Yeah, there was a whole I want to say it was like a BBC feature. I can send you the link so you can put it in the show notes. But yeah, the head, I don't know if it was exactly the head of the radio show. I know it's called The Beat in London, the Beat FM. Like, yeah, he was saying that it was simply because of just the diaspora seeking out like what sounds were becoming stronger. And of course, like, I think the true telling of all of this and like just his pinnacles being constantly hit every single time is someone like WizKid. Like WizKid is truly like the definition of what happens when like like obviously like on the ground, like he's being so revered and like everyone loves the sound. And even across Africa, like WizKid has been a legend, right?
Yes.
Like from back in the day. But now because of the internet and like, like globalization, so having more Africans everywhere, and we all know WizKid, it's like now we're requesting his song or streaming his music. And so more and more of demand is needed. And that's what labels are driven by numbers. Once they see like, oh, there's demand here, okay, let's feed it to them. And then that, I think that cross merge between someone like him and Skepta, and now later, Drake just like took it to a whole new level. So yeah, I think that it's like a mixture of just the internet, as well as like this new paradigm of like young, I wouldn't even say young, but just like Africans now utilizing the internet to find like roots and their like culture online and like
Yes.
demonstrating that culture online.
Yeah. And it's such like a great moment to be in, I would say. Cause
I love it. I love it. I know, right? We were not here like, yo.
like I couldn't imagine like my high school self saying, oh, I'm going to a WizKid concert or something like that.
Right.
Or like, I'm going to go see some like big African artists in concert and like the concert's going to be sold out. Like that just wasn't.
Tickets are right. Everybody's trying to go.
Yeah, like that wasn't a thing.
It would have been like a small, right? Like we would have gone to see WizKid, just like you and your other African, like maybe not even African, like maybe your other like Caribbean friend. And it's just, you know, like that's so, you're so right.
Yeah, like it's so awesome to watch. And like you mentioned you actually went to like a WizKid, like was it his New York show?
I went to his New York show in Prospect Park. Absolute, so much fun. It was beautiful. I think that, I mean, of course, you know, Twitter was complaining it was short. It wasn't a full hour. But I think one thing that I will say, and the power of the internet, I do believe that his team, because there was a whole series, and I don't know if you saw this too, of just like TikToks, tweets of people being like, if you don't know, you know, Pakurumo or like his old songs, like this show is not for you, like this is for us. And so the fact that he did a whole like old school medley of like, you know, even Carol, like all his like old hits. And like, mind you, this is a concert, or this series, this tour is for his new album. It's not for his old stuff really. But the fact that he heard what we were saying, just like, yeah, you better like, don't play with us. You better recognize that we are day one fans. And like the crowd, I feel like the crowd went more crazy for the old stuff than even some of the new stuff. You know, so it was interesting to see how people engaged with it. And like, just, yeah, it was beautiful to just witness like him at that magnitude. And I only know it's going to go up. Like next time it'll be at like Barclays Center or Madison Square Garden. Who knows?
Love it. Love it. I mean, that's so awesome. And I did see all of that, like all of the tweets and the memes and stuff saying like, if all you know is Essence, like do not
Essence Warriors, don't get give me your ticket. Give me your ticket. You do not deserve a ticket.
Oh gosh. Yeah, that was so great. And yeah, like you said, it's so awesome. And I hope to see WizKid in like, you know, all those, you know, even larger venues. And I think you're starting to see a little bit of that now with like the like festivals and stuff that are happening like across the country. So that's also really cool to see, like that there's like, you know, things like I think it's called like the Lost in Rhythm Festival. I'm actually going to that one. Yeah.
Oh, you are. Yes. By the time people listen to this, you probably would have gone already.
Oh,
but,
true.
Right. But yeah, no, that I'm so intrigued by that, because that's like, isn't that where is it? It's in Oakland?
It's in Sacramento, California.
Right. That's so random. Like, are there Africans? I mean, Africans are everywhere, but
you know,
that's so crazy. Like, I would have never guessed that a headline, like a show like that, like basically a Coachella.
Exactly.
Africa,
exactly.
And in California, like what I would have expected it to be in Africa. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't. Right.
Exactly. Like that wouldn't. That's not something that I've never attended an event like that, like ever. And so now, like knowing that exists, and like the headliners are like DeVito, Burna Boy, WizKid, and like Thames is going to be
this
there.
Is not an ad, by the way. We're just like, even though this is free promo, sponsored Dear Diaspora, Lost and Afrolit, Lost in Rhythm. But yeah, like that lineup is crazy. Like,
yeah, it's just so wild.
It's everyone. It's everyone. I hope they don't. The only thing I hope, and I'm praying for you, is that they don't put like WizKid and Burna Boy at the same time.
No, I think so it's a 2-day thing. And
so it's a 2-day. Okay.
Yeah. So each day has a different like headliner. I just can't remember like who goes when. Good. But yeah, I think they like spaced it out and like scheduled it out so it makes sense.
There'll be like a whole back and forth thing of like, okay, we're gonna go a little bit and then we're gonna have to go, and then you know, we can't miss. And even speaking to that, like you know, the fact that WizKid sold out O2 in 12 minutes.
Yes. And the London venue.
Like there's 3 shows now.
Yes.
Like,
wow. Which is so wild because people are like, oh, we need another one, you know, and then he opens another one.
Right.
Yeah, like people like requested it. And
yeah. Like his team is really paying attention, which I love. But it's just so interesting. Like, who would have thought that, like, because I think it like that's that only, and you know, correct us if we're wrong, but I think that has only happened for someone like Beyonce, right? In London. Or
so the article that I read like listed out like maybe 4 different acts. Yeah, like people from different genres. Like I think he is probably the first African artist.
Oh yeah,
that. Yeah, I believe so. So it's just so awesome to see. There's this like DeVito quote, and basically he said like, okay, music is our new oil, essentially. Ooh. Yes. And he was like, and the quote reads, when I lived in America, being African wasn't cool. The first thing you'd hear about Africa is scams and poverty. Now people talk about the culture, the food. Now everyone wants to make African music. And I just thought that was so powerful.
Right. No, literally everyone does. Everyone is trying to hop on this Afrobeats quote unquote sound, which is a story for another day. But yeah. I just think that I love that quote so much because I do even, you know, there's another quote that I hold personally to myself, which is that our creativity is actually our anointing oil, you know? So for him to say that music, shout out to Crystal Mice who said that on a Clubhouse room. And I've just like held on to that forever because it's so true and it's so powerful and it just feels good when you say it. Because like, you know, when you think about oil, even oil as an export and how it's, you know, commodified, is that the word? Anyway, a commodity. Yeah. I think.
Yes.
Okay,
it's a commodity.
Right. Yes. Science. Even though I didn't continue that economics 101 class, held it down. Sis. But yeah, as a commodity, like if you think about even our creativity in that sense, not that it should be created for that sole purpose, I think there is like a powerful thing because like oil is something that's like generational, you know what I mean? So it's like that can be preserved, that can be kept, that can be used again and again and again and again. So like for him to say that music is our oil is just so powerful, especially when you think about just our history within Africa and like the exploitation and I think that a lot more. And I love what Mr. Easy is doing with Empower and just, giving like that edge. Because there's like, we know that we're talented and we're gifted, but there's that educational piece that has to be honed in on and like preserved and like, you know, copyrights and like having a lawyer and like knowing your rates and knowing what deals to sign and owning your music and, you know, like really making sure that we don't repeat the same mistakes that like former, because there've been huge, you know, there's been Fela, there's Awilo is still around, you know what I mean? Yes, but it's like they weren't given the same sort of freedoms. Like they only had to go down the route of a record label. Now you don't, you know what I mean? At all. So it's like, it's a very, very unique time to be African because now we can really not even like we're creating our own table and everyone wants a seat at our table. That's like the difference.
Yes, it is. It's such a shift, you know, compared to, you know, decades ago where, you know, people wouldn't even look at our table. People would just
at all
walk right past it and be like, Africa, be like what? Like,
I'm not trying to go to this, like, you know what I mean? That, like, why would I go to that table?
Exactly. And now everyone does, you know, want a piece of the pie. And I'm curious to just get your thoughts on like, how do you thoughtfully collaborate with an African artist if you are like, let's say Drake? Like, how do you think?
Shout out OVO. If you listen to this, you can hire me.
I know, right? Yes. Hire Ekua, please.
To be your, like, what is it? Your
like cultural consultant or something.
Right. Like preserver. I don't know. Let's like make a job title. But yeah.
Yes.
Cultural connoisseur.
Love it. Love it. But yeah, with like, like songs like One Dance, I mean, I thought that was like done really well, obviously. And like, even though I know people were like, oh, you can barely hear Wizkid, it's
even
still,
though I love that part. His Wizkid's part is fire.
Yes, it's so awesome. But yeah, like how do you like do that in a way that's like, it like respects the talent of, the African artist and isn't just essentially just trying to ride a wave? Like, is there like a thoughtful way to do like collaborations? Or
I mean,
maybe it's not that deep.
I think it is all deep because of just how long like this will stay beyond us, right? So like our music or the creativity that's being created right now will live like way beyond us. So like we have to just treat it with some intention. Like I think the biggest thing is always intention. So it's like with artists like Drake, I mean, I think because they're so like they're huge and they have access to like huge budgets. Like if you look at their music videos or just, you know what I mean? Like I would hope that when they take on or like want to include like a sound that is currently like hot right now, they can actually invest in that artist and like, support their band, or like if it means traveling to, Lagos or, Accra or, Johannesburg, and like being in that setting, you know what I mean? Like really like actually feeling that vibe so that I believe the music can be made authentically. You know what I mean? I think that there's also a level of just like education, too, that can come from moments like that. And that's why I always refer back to not like, yes, there's the Black Panther album that Kendrick made, but then there's the Black Panther soundtrack that this, I think his name is like Marcus like Stevenson. I mean, basically I think he's a Swedish dude. Like he's not African, but he hired Baba Mal, the amazing Senegalese like traditional singer. And like, got like, I think it's from Guinea. It's called the kora instrument.
Okay.
I know it's from West Africa, but it's just like, because you know how when Black Panther opens, it's that like person singing. It's like kind of like Lion King. Yes. Yeah, that's Baba Mal. That's Baba Mal. And it's kind of like this open, you know what I mean? It's like, it feels very African, the drums like doo-doo, you know what I mean? But it's like that you could tell, like that gave me chills because you can feel like, oh, okay, this is like, we're going somewhere. You know what I mean? Like it's setting the scene. And the fact that this dude, because of course, the non-African dude could have easily been like, I'm gonna listen to some of this. I'm gonna listen to some of that on YouTube. I don't really, you know what I mean? Like it could have been done so unintentionally, but the fact that he sought him out and like included him in this process and therefore included like his own orchestra and band I feel like that's also why Black Panther did what it did, because the intention was very clear with the people that were associated with. And so like, even with that sort of experience, it's about including like the people who are on the ground, who are already doing the work, who are already amazing, talented artists. So it's just about including them and paying them to be a part of that conversation, and not just like exploiting them, or not even really exploiting, but just like taking or like having them hop on a beat or hop on a song because like, that would like jumpstart your own career. So making it like both parties eat and win together.
Like a true collaboration.
Where like everyone who you want involved is like invited to the table. And like, like it has to be done intentionally. I think now as we look ahead, without people, with everyone trying to be authentic and everyone trying to, understand, because there are different regions, you know what I mean? Like North Africa has its own sort of Arabic sound. West Africa, there's so many different sounds and music and instruments that come from East
Mm.
Africa, from West Africa, from South Africa. So it's
Mm.
like, if you're trying to do like a whole Africa thing and you just simply stick to Afrobeats, that's not really all Africa. You just did an Afrobeats album. You know what I mean? What about like the
Right.
R&B that's coming out? What about there's drill that's now coming out of Africa? Like, it's so crazy. So it's like, there's ways that these things can be done. And I think it's so beautiful when it's done correctly.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like,
when you can see the intention and you can feel like it was very thoughtful and just done so just properly. And
yeah, like I think for me, like if I were to allude to like one of my favorite, at least collaborations for right now, it may have changed. You can DM me and like ask me what it's what it is at the time this drops, if it's still the same. But I think about Mr. Easy and J Balvin. They have a song called Como un Bebé. Right.
That song. Oh,
right.
So good.
Isn't
so
that
good.
song so good? Because it's like, you know, there's the Spanish, there's the, you know, the pep, so you're feeling the Afrobeat vibe. Like, I love that song. Like, that song is
so
just
good.
like,
it's excellent.
It's like, I've seen like, you know, Spanish, Latino people dancing to it. Like, we're all on the dance floor together. You know, we're speaking the Spanish. They're speaking the, you know, so it's a beautiful moment. And I can imagine like, I would have loved to see like the behind the scenes on that type of song. Like if they were together in the studio or if it was separate, like that would have been amazing.
Totally. Yeah. I love that song. And I think it was done really well. And both artists and both styles are like, you know, represented like really well. And it doesn't feel like, oh, he's just thrown on at the end, you know,
right.
says a little something, but you don't really get a sense of
Hear
like,
him.
okay, yeah. So it's like, yeah, it was so thoughtful and it's still a bop for sure. I do enjoy the song. Yeah. And so I guess not to be petty, but what's an example of a collaboration that you think wasn't done too well?
Wow, you want me to get canceled and do what? You want me to be canceled?
No, let's just go there. Why not?
We can critique things. And again, this is like my opinion. Let me think. Because you know what's so funny, like bad, or let me rephrase, not bad, but just music that I don't really resonate with, like I listen to once and I won't pay attention to at all. Like again, I'm thinking about a funny one, but I don't want to discuss him. So I'm not gonna bring it up. But basically there's a remix of Essence that There's actually two. There's one that we're really not going to discuss.
I know what you're talking about.
There's the remix of Essence. And not that it's bad, but it's so clear because it's so funny. It's so funny because I went to the show and I remember thinking like, I hope he doesn't do the remix because that might start a riot.
Okay,
might start a riot because that was not for us, you know, that was not for us. That was for the demographics that still at this time don't know Wizkid, which in my mind seems impossible. But from the people that I've met and I know, like there are people in this world that don't know who Wizkid is. And I'm just like, wow, like, where are you living? Where do you live if you don't know that Wizkid is a legend?
Under a rock somewhere. And so, okay, I think I know what you're talking about, and we don't even have to get too deep into it, but I know there were two separate remixes, one featuring Justin Bieber, and then the other one was with DaBaby, right?
Yes,
those are the two. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, even, I mean, both of those efforts just seemed, I just didn't understand. I didn't understand why.
I always say, and shout out to my friend Amanda, because literally Essence could have really been the next Despacito. Had it been like they pulled, you know, the whole like Latino gang.
Wow. Yes.
Wow. A moment. But you know, it's still not too late. They can still do it. but
I would have loved
that
to
would
see
have
that.
I would have loved, and I still would love to see something like, because I think that
Yes.
actually, because I feel like that would actually bring more of, but I get it because it was more about a numbers thing,
Certain,
versus versus like because everyone loves Essence, right?
yeah.
But yeah, like it just felt very it felt very, he tried though. He really did. I'll give it, and it's funny too. I am for some songs, I am a believer. That's what they're
I
called.
was
Yeah.
just gonna say that. Yes. I mean, I've
Right.
been a fan like since the jump,
Word.
so I understand, but it wasn't my favorite. And I'm
No.
totally open to like some sort of reggaeton
Mm.
remix or something.
Yup.
That would be really cool.
Let's go.
To hear. And do you think African artists, do we, not we, I'm not an African artist, but do African artists,
Technically creative, you're an African creative.
do African artists and musicians, do they need those collaborations, you think, to?
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
No, not anymore. I think that
Okay.
we've reached a time, because I mean, it's so interesting because of, and I keep driving it back to the internet, but it's really the internet, because it's like now with streaming devices, like, the same way that I think that WizKid is a legend, there's probably someone from, a completely different market, like whether it's in Asia, that I have no idea about, but they think is a legend. You know what I mean? Like, I personally, I have not really listened. I've listened to some BTS, but like they are killing it. They're doing numbers. They have such a huge fan base. So to think that, and I think the other band is called Blackpink. Like, I have no idea about them at all, but they are so popular. And so I feel like in the same way for African artists, they can do a whole tour. I mean, WizKid's doing a whole tour. Cities are sold out, adding more cities. I'm sure other African artists are going to do the same, whether it's Burna Boy, whether it's Mr. Easy, whether it's Tiwa, whether it's Diamond, Rayvani. Like, I think that now it's actually more of the Black diaspora coming together. So it's like, imagine if you had, like a Diamond and that's why I love what, there's this company called One Africa, that they do. And they like have like all these different artists from all regions come together. I don't know if they do it in other cities, but I know that they do it in New York. And then there's things like Afro Nation, like slowly but surely there's like more and more of like, you're going to Lost in Rhythm. Like, imagine if they did Lost in Rhythm, I don't know, Zanzibar, or they bring it to New York. You know what I mean? Like, now it's like or they bring it to Cancun. Like, there's so many avenues that these things can like grow into. And I think we're really just at the beginning. So totally. I don't think that, African artists need any. I do think, though, what we need is just better management. I think we need better teams. We need people who understand the industry and have maybe experienced things in themselves, and then just having that home and diasporic support. So like, if you know what I mean? Like, really like taking time, like seeking out, whether it's Zambian music, whether it's Kenyan music, like really finding out like, okay, who's lit, like who's, listening to playlists, asking DJs, requesting DJs make like mixes about certain things, because I think that that's like how we'll actually create a demand for this music to leave a certain region and like be in your region of residence or wherever you're based.
Absolutely. It's so awesome to know, like, the diaspora like has that much power. And like, we've seen that with like Nigeria, obviously, is one of like the biggest examples of that. Yeah. Cause I mean, I would love to be able to go out and hear Zambian music, but I just like, that doesn't happen. Like I
know,
like there's one song by Mampi that used to get played like years ago, but then it just kind of like faded off. But
how do you feel about Sampa the Great?
I love her. I love her. Yes, she's so awesome.
She's like that new age. You know what I mean?
Yes, she's great. And like, but then again, her music is not necessarily club music, you know? Like,
I hear you.
It's it's like more like real, like, you know,
right.
like,
I mean, free form, no,
substance.
final form is like a good, like, I feel like that's like a good, like, anthems. Like, you could drop it like once, you know what I mean? Like, you could listen to it, like, it could play at the beginning of a party, probably. Like, when things are still warming up, like a warm up. But yeah, it's not like turn up. I know. And that's the thing too. Like, sometimes it's like, you just have to like when I meet new artists too, I'm always like, you need a birthday song. Every artist needs a birthday song. Like, if you're a musician and you're listening to this, you need like a lit birthday song. Because so every artist has one. Yeah, you need one.
And that's like the go-to song just every time. Someone's birthday. Yeah.
Because every day is someone's birthday. So like, if you have a lit birthday song, you have to make a birthday song. You have to make a like somewhat of a love song, but like a song that like can be danced to with those sorts of topics. Like, if it's a danceable birthday song, it can easily be played at like a party more than once. You see what I'm saying? Because it's like, oh, this table has a birthday. Okay, now the next table has, you know what I mean? So it's now we're playing this song. And then it's like, if I know that artist, I'm going to play that birthday song. I'm not going to play like the 2 Chainz one. Or maybe I'll mix them together. I don't know. You know
smart.
What I mean?
Yes, do like, your DJ thing.
Like, there's just so many possibilities. I feel like that's what people forget. Like, that's what's beautiful about this time too. That's for Africans and Black people, is that like, there's no limit now. So it's like, you really have to hone in on like, okay, what do you like to do? What do you want to do? And these are all suggestions, right? Like, you don't need a birthday song, but
right.
It's a time where it's like, you can experiment and like try everything. And all you need is just like one thing. Like, Lil Nas X just had Old Town Road. Yeah. And now it's like it's a whole new time for him. So that's how I feel.
Wow, I've enjoyed this conversation so much, Ekua, and it's been like a breath of fresh air for sure. So glad you could be a guest. And I guess, what are you listening to? What should people like go look up? Even from Kenya specifically, like, what should we listen to?
Okay, so definitely, if you've not subscribed already to Afrolit, make sure to tap in on that. It's available everywhere for streaming purposes, but then also on YouTube and on Instagram and on Twitter. So and on LinkedIn, but we don't have any job postings, so no. But yes, I definitely I'm coming back. I am by the time this drops, there'll be a new episode of Afrolit, especially with some artists, and on YouTube. So definitely check that out. I also would love for you to tap in with my own personal page. I have my own playlist that you can check out as well, that probably by this time will be updated. So tap in on that. But I have my lovely friends at Tangaza. Shout out to Tangaza Magazine. They are East Africa's leading alternative music magazine and platform. And they feature a lot of East African artists. Okay. So yeah, make sure if you're looking specifically for East Africa, look out for them. And then I would say just follow me and ask me. Like, if you have any specific questions, I'm very accessible. I mean, I'm trying to get better at email, but I'm so much better at DM. Even though don't DM me, but like, if you do DM me, make it like, or if you DM Afrolit, like, be sure to get back to you. But yeah, I would also say send us scenarios, because we always have, every bi-weekly we like take on messages from our community, just like fun stuff. Our last one was, what would you do if your significant other became like a famous rapper? Like, are you still gonna be interested? We talked about Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez. Like, it's just like more fun stuff. You know what I mean? We're gonna talk about Vanessa Mdee and Rotimi. So yeah, tap in with all the different content that is coming out on Afrolit's platforms.
Love it.
Yeah, that's really it.
Yes, thank you so much, Ekua. Yes, be sure to follow Afrolit on all the socials, listen to their podcast, like all the things.
Yes.
You will definitely not regret it. And yeah, thank you again,
Tap in
Ekua.
with me. Of course. You'll have all my information, and you have all my information. So yeah, include it. But I'm so appreciative. Shout out, dear diaspora.
Yay.
Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Be sure to follow this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts so that you get notified each time a new episode is out, and that's every 2 weeks. New episodes are released on a bi-weekly schedule now. You can now support the show by buying us a coffee. Be as generous as you'd like. All of your support goes right back into growing the podcast and supporting the creatives behind the show. Also, don't forget to submit your questions. We are recording an episode this season focused on destigmatizing mental health with Ghanaian American licensed mental health counselor Alice Mills-Mai. So we're going to be doing a Q&A portion, and we will answer your questions, and you can submit them anonymously. So check out the link in the description for that. And no questions are off limits, by the way. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.